I'd love to do it full time, but I like developing apps too much to kind of split it that much.
Yeah, that's fair enough. Okay, cool. It's interesting because, like I said, like I've worked at, and I won't mention names because I don't want to get myself or anyone in trouble, but I've worked at like fairly big companies in the UK as well, and like similar to ASOS, and zero interest in security whatsoever, which is always like surprised me. I think people kind of take for granted that the apps and, you know, Android and iOS are secure by default, like it's as if they're not computers, and that's never the case. So I want to jump into a little bit about kind of, I guess, like I'm going to assume people that are listening have, you know, they have an idea of like security, but most people, at least that I speak to, have an idea of like, you know, if I get an email from a random person, don't click that link, and those kind of things. And they don't necessarily, or they're not necessarily aware of the kind of threats as a user perspective using a smart device. And then secondly, from a development perspective, like I've, you know, no idea what the kind of things are that I should be looking for. So in that sense, like, what are some of the things, I guess, like, what are some of the ways that apps that you've seen could be exposed or like are vulnerable? And then what are some of the things as a developer that you should be looking out for when you're coding that maybe, you know, people generally don't think about?
That's a really great question. I think, I mean, there's several great examples of, you know, really easy things that we can do as app developers to make sure our apps are secure. It's as simple as not, you know, it can start as simple as just not putting things that you wouldn't want to share in your app. So when I say, you know, it's quite trivial to, you know, take an app and reverse engineer it. And if, for example, if you've got a secret key or a secret password, or, you know, I think there was a report recently that, you know, upwards of, I can't remember the exact percentage, but it was a scarily high percentage of apps contain AWS keys, for example, that could be used to access, you know, secure AWS instances. And it's as simple as that. And in terms of kind of what threats are out there, I mean, a good place to start with this would be OWASP, who are a free for profit organization that allow basically they produce a list of the top 10 threats to mobile, and I definitely would recommend going out and familiarizing yourself with that. I've done 2 talks on it. I'm also writing a blog post series on that at the moment, so yeah, shameless promotion there. But it's a really good overview of some of the threats that we face as app developers. And in terms of kind of steps to prevent this, there's plenty of tools on the market. So I'm sure we're all familiar with the names ProGuard, and you know, DexGuard is a paid version of ProGuard by the same people that make it. We have you know, free tools such as MobSF, which can be used to provide kind of a security analysis on your APKs. And yeah, there's a million and one different tools out there that we can use as developers to make our apps more secure. Certainly, I think familiarizing yourself with the OWASP top 10 is a very, very good place to start, and actually something you can do relatively easily. The examples they give are excellent. So I would definitely start there. Yeah, I hope that answers your question. It's such a broad subject that there's so many different ways that apps can be exploited. I'm trying to think of a good example of one. I think a very good example actually that I tweeted about just today or yesterday was Hyundai, the car manufacturer. They used when they wrote their secure code for their Android Auto app, they encrypted their update files using a sample that is freely available online. So they basically copied and pasted a tutorial, and without changing anything. So some developer found this, and they've been able to reverse engineer, you know, their whole car and their ecosystem, which is for you know, billion dollar companies make these mistakes all the time. So, you know, I think it's a mindset switch that we all need as developers to kind of switch on and realize that this is, you know, there are people that will look through your code. It doesn't matter how big or small your app is. People will look through your code. So I think, you know, treat everybody, as sort of when don't treat people like they're not going to touch it, because they are. So that's the best advice I'd give, for sure.